when a 17-year-old radio man fell asleep, and his snoring saved 400 lives. It sounds impossible. It sounds like a mistake that should have ended in disaster. But on the night of July 14th, 1944, in the black waters of the South Pacific, a single exhausted teenage sailor did exactly that, and in doing so, unknowingly prevented the deaths of more than 400 American servicemen. This is the story of Radioman third-class Robert Bobby McLean, just 17 years old, serving aboard the USS LST-342, a U.S. Navy landing ship, tank, tasked with transporting troops and equipment toward the Philippines during the final phase of the island-hopping campaign. The ship was slow, poorly armed, packed with soldiers, and moving through waters known to be patrolled by Japanese submarines. Fear gripped the men aboard that night. Little did they know that what happened next would become one of the most unlikely life-saving moments of the Second World War. By mid-1944, the United States Navy was pushing relentlessly westward across the Pacific. The goal was clear: isolate Japan, cut off its supply lines, and prepare the way for the liberation of the Philippines. Landing ship, tank vessels, known simply as LSTs, were the backbone of this effort. Each could carry hundreds of soldiers, vehicles, ammunition, and fuel. They were slow, with a top speed of barely 12 knots, and their flat bottoms made them unstable in open seas. The USS LST-342, commissioned in late 1943, was one of these workhorses. On this mission, she carried over 400 U.S. Army engineers and infantry replacements, along with trucks, bulldozers, and artillery pieces destined for upcoming amphibious operations. Among the crew was Radioman third-class McLean, fresh out of training, barely old enough to shave. His job was to monitor radio traffic, maintain listening silence, and relay coded messages between ships in the convoy. He had been awake for nearly 36 hours. Japanese submarine activity in the region had intensified. In the previous 2 weeks alone, 5 Allied ships had been sunk within 300 miles of their route. Commanders knew the danger, but the mission could not be delayed. By nightfall on July 14th, LST-342 was steaming independently, separated from its escort due to mechanical delays. She was alone, 5 to 1,500 hours building tension. At 2,230 hours, the sea was unnaturally calm. No moon, no wind. Visibility was near zero. Below decks, soldiers lay shoulder to shoulder on steel floors, rifles stacked, helmets tucked under arms. Sweat mixed with diesel fumes. Every creak of the hull sounded like a threat. In the radio shack, McLean struggled to stay awake. The red lights glowed softly over the receiver panels. Static hissed through his headphones. By 2,300 hours, fatigue won. His head dropped forward, and he fell asleep. Minutes passed, then more. What no one realized was that McLean, in deep exhaustion, began to snore. Not loudly, but rhythmically. Down in the radio compartment, the sound echoed faintly through a ventilation duct that led upward toward the bridge access corridor. At 2,317 hours, Lieutenant James R. Holloway, the ship's executive officer, was making a routine round when he heard it. Snoring. On a ship under strict nighttime silence. Holloway froze. Snoring meant someone was asleep, but more importantly, it meant someone was making noise. Noise that could carry across calm water. Japanese submarines hunted by sound. What happened next would become legendary. 15 to 2,200 hours the crisis. Holloway followed the sound and burst into the radio shack. McLean snapped awake, terrified. He thought he was about to be court-martialed. But Holloway had bigger concerns. At 2,320 hours, sonar operators reported a faint contact, 1,200 yards off the starboard bow. Too weak to classify, but real. A Japanese Type B-1 submarine, likely running silent. The snoring had alerted Holloway to the deadly stillness of the ship and the possibility that any sound could give them away. Immediate action was ordered. Engines were reduced to minimal revolutions. All internal movement stopped. Soldiers were ordered to remain completely still. Even coughing was forbidden. At 2,331 hours, a phosphorescent wake appeared off the starboard quarter. A torpedo track. It passed just 200 yards behind the stern. Had the submarine fired moments earlier, while the ship was still making full noise, LST-342 would have been hit squarely amidships. Fully loaded with fuel and ammunition, the explosion would have killed nearly everyone aboard. For 3 brutal hours, the ship drifted in near silence while the submarine hunted, circling, listening, waiting. Fear gripped every man. McLean sat frozen at his station, barely breathing, fully aware that his mistake had almost cost hundreds of lives, and may have saved them. 22:00, 27:00, the turning point. At 0215 hours, sonar contact faded. The submarine gave up the hunt. At dawn, escort destroyers rejoined the LST. The danger had passed. Later analysis confirmed that Japanese submarines in the area had sunk 2 Allied ships the same night, both moving at speed, both detected acoustically. LST-342 survived, not because of superior firepower, not because of radar, but because a tired teenager snored at the wrong or right moment. McLean was not punished. Instead, the ship's captain privately thanked him. No medals were awarded. No official report recorded the snoring. But over 400 men reached their destination alive. 27:00, 30:00 resolution and legacy. Robert McLean served out the war, never seeing combat again. He returned home in 1946 and rarely spoke about the incident. Many of the soldiers he unknowingly saved went on to fight in the Philippines campaign, building airstrips and clearing beaches that helped end the war. LST-342 completed 6 amphibious operations without loss of life. In the chaos of war, heroism is often loud, charging forward under fire. But sometimes heroism is quiet. Sometimes it happens while asleep. 32.00, 31.2.00. This was just one of countless untold stories from the Second World War. Subscribe to World War II Records as we continue to bring these forgotten chapters of history back to life.